Beloved, we were never designed to live this life on our own. God's original intent was always that we would walk in daily fellowship with His Spirit. Not as a guest who visits once in a while, but as the very atmosphere we breathe. Many cry out, "Holy Spirit, you are welcome here." But few understand what it truly means to prepare a heart, a home, and a life that becomes His resting place. If you desire to live a life marked by power, peace, and divine purpose, you must do more than simply ask Him to come. You must intentionally create space for His presence to remain. Let us discover together how to truly invite the Holy Spirit into every moment of our lives. Surrender is not a word that many find comfortable, yet it is the very foundation of welcoming the Holy Spirit into our lives. To truly say, "Holy Spirit, you are welcome here," we must go far beyond inviting Him into our gatherings or moments of prayer. We must first surrender the throne of our hearts. This surrender is neither passive nor forced. It is a conscious daily choice to let go of our need to control, our stubbornness, and our deeply rooted fears about what might happen if we fully yield to God. When we hold on to our plans and preferences, we create a crowded heart where the Holy Spirit finds no room to dwell. Imagine trying to invite an honored guest into your home, only to find every room cluttered and every chair occupied by your own desires, anxieties, and self-will. The guest may enter, but he will have no place to sit, no space to rest. In the same way, our hearts must be cleared through surrender, so that the Holy Spirit can truly make Himself at home. Surrender starts with recognizing who truly holds the highest authority. We often say that Jesus is Lord, but in practice, we act as if we are still in charge. We plan our days, set our ambitions, and react to challenges based on what feels best to us. Yet, inviting the Holy Spirit requires us to dethrone ourselves, to admit that His wisdom surpasses ours, and to trust that His plans, even when they seem contrary to our understanding, are always for our good. It is a deep internal bowing of the knee that says, "Holy Spirit, you know better than I do. Lead, and I will follow." This act of surrender is not limited to spiritual matters. It extends into every corner of our lives, our relationships, finances, careers, and even our hidden struggles. We may find it easy to invite the Holy Spirit into our worship services or moments of prayer, but true surrender invites Him into the arguments we have at home, the frustration we feel at work, the doubts that visit us late at night. We say, "Holy Spirit, you are welcome here," not just in the church pews, but in the messy, unfiltered places of our hearts. Surrender is both instant and continuous. There is a moment when we consciously hand over the keys of our hearts to Him, but each day afterward brings fresh opportunities to reaffirm that decision. Every morning, we face the temptation to pick the keys back up, to rely once again on our own strength. Yet the surrendered heart rises each day and says, "Holy Spirit, I choose to yield again. Guide my thoughts, guard my words, direct my actions." Many fear surrender because it feels like losing control, but in truth, it is gaining peace. When we try to control everything, we live in constant anxiety, burdened by outcomes we can never fully manage. Surrender replaces this restless striving with quiet trust. It does not mean we become passive. Rather, it means we become responsive. Instead of forcing our way forward, we learn to sense His promptings and move as He leads. It transforms our relationship with God from duty to delight, from pressure to partnership. Surrender is also deeply linked to faith. We cannot yield to someone we do not trust. To welcome the Holy Spirit, we must believe that He is good, that His intentions toward us are filled with love, and that even His corrections flow from His desire to bring us closer to God's perfect will. This trust grows as we experience His faithfulness, sometimes in small moments, a quiet comfort during sadness, a sudden clarity when we felt lost, a gentle reminder of truth when we were tempted to believe lies. Each encounter builds our confidence in his leadership, making surrender less of a sacrifice and more of a natural response. The beauty of surrender is that it transforms us. It is impossible to live yielded to the Holy Spirit and remain unchanged. The more we surrender, the more his character becomes visible in us. His love softens our hearts. His patience steadies our reactions. His wisdom shapes our decisions. We begin to live lives that reflect not just our own desires, but God's greater purpose. So to truly say, Holy Spirit, you are welcome here, is to pray with our lives, not just our lips. It is to open every door, every hidden room of our hearts and say, come, take your rightful place. I surrender all that I am to all that you are. And in that sacred exchange, we find the greatest freedom, deepest peace, and most powerful presence we could ever know. When we speak of creating an atmosphere of worship, many immediately think of music, singing, or Sunday services. But true worship is far deeper, richer, and broader than a song. It is a lifestyle, a posture of the heart that declares God's worthiness above all else. To truly welcome the Holy Spirit, we must go beyond moments of praise and build an environment, both around us and within us, where his presence feels at home. Worship in this sense is like the fragrance that fills the room and draws him closer. At its core, worship is the act of turning our attention and affection toward God, magnifying who he is, regardless of what we feel or face. It is acknowledging his majesty, goodness, and sovereignty, even when life's circumstances seem contrary. The Holy Spirit is irresistibly drawn to such hearts, because worship dethrones self and enthrones God. It shifts the focus away from our limitations and anxieties and places it firmly on his eternal greatness. An atmosphere of worship begins in the secret place, the private moments when no one else is watching. It is easy to lift our hands in a crowded service, but what about when we are alone in our room, or driving through traffic, or walking through a season of disappointment? The Holy Spirit is not looking for perfection in song or eloquence in prayer. He is seeking sincerity and consistency. When we choose to worship in private, we cultivate a heart that remains open to him at all times, and this private devotion often overflows into every other area of life. Consider the way worship transforms our environment. The world is filled with noise, negativity, fear, anxiety, and endless distractions. When we fill our homes, cars, and workplaces with worship, whether through music, spoken praise, or quiet reflection, we push back that darkness. Worship shifts the spiritual atmosphere. It is like lighting a lamp in a dark room. Suddenly, what seemed oppressive and heavy becomes lighter and filled with hope. This does not happen by accident. It requires intentional choice. We decide daily what atmosphere we create around us. One of complaining and fear, or one of thanksgiving and praise. But worship is more than what we say or sing. It is also what we do. When our actions reflect reverence, gratitude, and obedience to God, our lives themselves become an offering. Serving others, forgiving those who wrong us, giving generously, and choosing integrity. These are acts of worship that honor God and welcome his Spirit. The Holy Spirit delights in a heart that worships through both words and deeds, in the hidden moments as much as in public ones. The power of worship also lies in its ability to realign our hearts with truth. We often face days when fear, doubt, or discouragement try to take hold. Worship lifts our gaze from our problems to God's promises. Singing, speaking, or meditating on his goodness and faithfulness reminds us who he is and who we are in him. This realignment not only welcomes the Holy Spirit, but also strengthens us to walk in his peace and power. Furthermore, worship invites intimacy. When we worship, we do not simply recite facts about God. We express love, gratitude, and longing for deeper relationship. This vulnerability opens the door for the Holy Spirit to speak, comfort, and guide, Many profound encounters with the Holy Spirit happen in moments of worship, not because we performed perfectly, but because we approached Him sincerely and humbly. Building a life of worship is not complicated, but it does require intentionality. It means starting the day by thanking God for His new mercies, whispering prayers of gratitude throughout the day, and ending the night by reflecting on His faithfulness. It means filling silent moments with praise rather than worry, and choosing to lift our hearts to Him even when we do not feel like it. Over time, this creates an internal and external environment where the Holy Spirit feels welcomed, honored, and at home. It is also important to remember that true worship is rooted in love. We do not worship to manipulate God or earn His presence. We worship because we love Him and He first loved us. The Holy Spirit responds to this genuine affection because it reflects the very heart of God. So, when we say, "Holy Spirit, you are welcome here," let it not be limited to a single song or service. Let it become the theme of our lives, the unseen fragrance of our days, and the silent strength behind our choices. Let worship flow from the deepest parts of who we are, transforming ordinary moments into holy ground, and making every place we step into a sanctuary where His presence is not only invited but desired and cherished. In such an atmosphere, the Holy Spirit does not merely visit, He remains. Holiness often sounds like an intimidating word, something reserved for saints, prophets, or those who seem far removed from everyday struggles. But holiness, at its heart, is not about perfection or living without flaw. It is about choosing to set our lives apart for God's purpose. When we truly want the Holy Spirit to feel welcome, we must understand that He is the Spirit of holiness, and He delights in hearts that long to please the Father above all else. This desire isn't driven by fear or duty, but by love. A love that says, "Lord, I want my life to honor You in every thought, word, and action." Welcoming the Holy Spirit through holiness begins with an internal shift. It's recognizing that our hearts are meant to be a temple for His presence, a sacred space. Just as no one would invite an honored guest into a filthy, cluttered room without first preparing it, so too must we examine and cleanse our hearts. This doesn't mean trying to become sinless by our own effort. That would only lead to frustration and pride. Instead, it means inviting the Holy Spirit to reveal areas that need change and being willing to respond when He lovingly corrects us. Holiness is about agreement with God. When the Holy Spirit points out a habit, thought pattern, or relationship that dishonors Him, our response reveals how much we truly want Him to stay. If we cling to what grieves Him, we build walls between us and His intimate fellowship. But when we humble ourselves and say, "Lord, change me," we open the door wider for His presence to dwell. It's not about outward rules or appearances. It's about inward surrender and a genuine desire to reflect His character. One of the profound truths about holiness is that it is not restrictive, it is liberating. The world often views holiness as a list of don'ts. Don't do this, don't say that, don't go there. But in reality, holiness frees us from the chains of sin, guilt, and regret. It protects us from decisions that lead to pain and distance us from God's best. It makes space for the Holy Spirit's peace, joy, and guidance to flourish. Choosing holiness is not about losing freedom. It's about discovering true freedom, the kind that only comes when our hearts are fully yielded to God. Holiness also requires intentional choices in everyday life. It means guarding what we allow into our minds and hearts through what we watch, listen to, and speak. It means asking, does this honor God? Does this strengthen my relationship with the Holy Spirit? Over time, these small daily choices build an environment where the Holy Spirit feels welcomed and at ease. Just as a friend feels most comfortable in a home filled with kindness and respect, the Holy Spirit feels most at home in hearts and lives shaped by reverence and love. This commitment to holiness is deeply relational. The Holy Spirit is not merely a power or force. He is a person who feels grief when we choose compromise and joy when we choose righteousness. Understanding this transforms holiness from a checklist into a love response. It becomes less about avoiding punishment and more about cherishing fellowship. We begin to realize that nothing in this world compares to the sweetness of His presence, and that anything which threatens that closeness simply isn't worth keeping. Another beautiful aspect of holiness is that it is a process, not a destination we reach overnight. God knows our weaknesses, and the Holy Spirit walks with us patiently. Each step we take toward holiness, no matter how small, is met with His grace and empowerment. The more we lean on Him, the more we discover that holiness is not something we achieve by striving, but something that grows as we remain connected to Him. Holiness also sets us apart as vessels God can use powerfully. When we choose purity over compromise, honesty over deception, love over bitterness, we become instruments ready for His work. The Holy Spirit can pour out His gifts, wisdom and power more freely through hearts that are clean and willing. In this way, holiness doesn't just bless us, it becomes a blessing to everyone around us. Ultimately, holiness is about alignment. It aligns our hearts, minds, and actions with God's nature and purpose. And in this alignment, we find the richest measure of the Holy Spirit's presence. We no longer settle for moments of visitation, but become places of habitation, living temples where He can dwell continually. In welcoming His holiness, we discover a life of deeper peace, joy, and spiritual authority. A life where the Holy Spirit truly feels at home and where His presence transforms not just us, but everything we touch. Prayer, for many, becomes a list of requests, a hurried routine squeezed into the cracks of busy lives. But when we truly want to welcome the Holy Spirit, prayer must transform from monologue into dialogue, from ritual into relationship. The Holy Spirit is not moved by polished words or rehearsed phrases. He longs for genuine, intimate communication. It is in this daily communion that His presence finds a resting place in our hearts. True intimacy with the Holy Spirit starts with a simple but profound realization. He is a person who desires fellowship. Just as a close friend delights in hearing your honest thoughts, joys, and fears, the Holy Spirit delights in every moment you share with Him. He is not impressed by eloquence. He is drawn by sincerity. Talking with Him can happen anywhere, in the stillness of dawn while driving, or even in the quiet moments before sleep. It is about turning the gaze of your heart toward Him and inviting Him into every detail of your day. Many believers unknowingly limit their relationship with the Holy Spirit to moments of crisis or public worship. Yet He desires to walk with us through the mundane, the small decisions, and the unnoticed struggles. When you whisper a prayer before a conversation, ask Him for wisdom in a meeting, or silently thank Him for an unexpected blessing, you weave Him into the fabric of your life. These moments of acknowledgement are like gentle knocks on the door of your heart, letting Him know He is welcome not only in sacred spaces, but in the ordinary rhythms of your day. Listening is equally important as speaking. Too often, prayer becomes a monologue where we pour out our worries, make our requests, and rush on with our schedules. But intimacy deepens when we learn to pause and listen. The Holy Spirit often speaks a whisper, a gentle nudge, a sudden clarity, a verse that comes to mind, or a peace that settles deep within. Cultivating this sensitivity requires slowing down, making room for silence, and trusting that He desires to speak more than we often realize. Intimate communication also involves vulnerability. It means bringing your real self before Him, not the self you think you should be. The Holy Spirit already knows your weaknesses, fears, and hidden wounds. When you speak honestly, confess struggles, or admit confusion, You invite him to comfort, heal, and guide. True intimacy isn't built on perfection. It is built on authenticity. The moments when you dare to be most real are often the moments when his presence feels most near. Welcoming the Holy Spirit through intimate communication transforms prayer from a duty into a delight. Instead of viewing it as something you must do, it becomes something you can't wait to do. The more you experience his companionship, the more you realize prayer is not limited to scheduled times, but can become the ongoing conversation of your life. This continual dialogue keeps your heart open and your spirit tuned to his voice. This intimacy shapes how you see yourself and others. As you listen to the Holy Spirit, he will remind you of your identity as God's beloved child. He will gently correct thoughts rooted in fear, pride, or shame and replace them with truth. And as you grow closer to him, your prayers for others deepen too. You begin to intercede not just from duty, but from compassion stirred by his own heart. Your words become more than requests. They become channels for his love and power to flow. The Holy Spirit's desire for intimate communication also means he wants to be part of your joys, not only your sorrows. Share your gratitude when something goes well, your excitement over answered prayers, your awe at the beauty you notice in everyday life. These moments of spontaneous praise create a bond of friendship. Just as you enjoy sharing good news with someone close, the Holy Spirit rejoices when you include him in the celebrations of life. Intimate communication with the Holy Spirit is not about quantity of words, but quality of connection. Some days your prayer might be long and flowing. Other days it might be a single sentence breathed sincerely. What matters most is the posture of your heart, openness, honesty, and desire for closeness. In this atmosphere, the Holy Spirit finds a welcome that words alone could never create. Ultimately, intimacy with the Holy Spirit transforms you. The more time you spend in his presence, the more his character shapes your own. His peace steadies your emotions, his wisdom guides your decisions, and his love softens your interactions with others. Your life becomes a living prayer, an ongoing invitation that says, Holy Spirit, you are truly welcome here. And in that sacred space of daily dialogue, his presence no longer visits occasionally. It dwells continually, shaping every moment with grace and truth. Obedience is one of the clearest signs that the Holy Spirit is truly welcome in our lives. Yet it is also one of the most challenging. It is easy to lift our hands in worship or speak words of surrender. But when the Holy Spirit gently nudges us to act, to forgive someone who hurt us, to step out in faith, to remain silent when we would rather speak, our true openness to his presence is tested. Welcoming the Holy Spirit isn't just about inviting him to visit. It is about creating a heart that is quick to respond to his leading, no matter how small or unexpected the prompt may seem. Obedience is deeply relational, not transactional. It is not a cold obligation where we follow a list of commands to earn favor. Instead, it is the overflow of love and trust. When we truly know the Holy Spirit's heart, his kindness, his wisdom, and his desire for our good, our willingness to obey becomes a joyful response rather than a fearful duty. It is a way of saying, I trust you more than I trust my own reasoning, and your ways are better than my own. The Holy Spirit's guidance is often subtle. He speaks through a quiet conviction, a sense of unrest about a decision, a sudden compassion that leads us to pray for someone, or an inner prompting to pause and reconsider our words. These whispers can be easily drowned out by the noise of our own desires, busyness, or fears. That is why cultivating sensitivity to his voice is essential. The more we practice listening and obeying, even in small things, the clearer his voice becomes in the bigger moments of life. Delayed obedience is still disobedience. Each time we hesitate or reason away his promptings, we harden our hearts just a little and make it harder to hear him the next time. But when we obey promptly and completely, even when it costs us comfort or pride, we keep our hearts tender and open. It's as if we say, Holy Spirit, I value your presence more than my convenience, my reputation, or my understanding. And in this, his presence becomes stronger and his guidance more evident. Obedience also aligns us with God's purposes beyond what we can see. The Holy Spirit often leads us in ways that make little sense in the moment, but fit perfectly into God's greater plan. For example, forgiving someone might feel unjust, yet it sets us free from bitterness that would block his peace. Speaking an encouraging word to a stranger might feel awkward, yet it could be an answer to that person's silent prayer. We rarely see the full picture, but obedience trusts that God does. It is important to remember that obedience is learned over time. None of us start perfectly sensitive or fully surrendered. The Holy Spirit is patient, teaching us gently, convicting us without condemning us, and celebrating every step of faith we take. When we fail, and we all do, the key is not to hide in shame, but to return to him quickly, confess, and ask for strength to obey next time. Each act of obedience, however small, builds spiritual muscle and deepens our intimacy with him. Obedience often challenges our comfort zones. The Holy Spirit may call us to step out in faith, to share our testimony, to give generously, or to love those who seem undeserving. These moments stretch us, revealing our fears, pride, or self-reliance. Yet in stepping out, we discover his strength at work in our weakness. What once felt impossible becomes natural, because his grace empowers us to do what we cannot do alone. Moreover, obedience brings a deeper joy and peace than self will ever could. When we walk in step with the Holy Spirit, we experience the profound satisfaction of living as we were created to live. In partnership with God, our lives become channels for his love, wisdom, and power to reach others. We begin to see his hand in places we never expected and recognize that even our smallest yes matters in his kingdom. Ultimately, obedience is an expression of love. Jesus said, "If you love me, keep my commandments." The Holy Spirit helps us fulfill this not by external pressure, but by transforming our hearts from the inside out. Our love for him fuels our obedience, and our obedience deepens our love. So welcoming the Holy Spirit means choosing a lifestyle of listening and responding, even when it is uncomfortable or costs us something precious. It is saying each day, "Holy Spirit, I trust you. Whatever you say, my answer is yes." In this posture, our lives become places where his presence is not only invited, but truly at home, guiding, empowering, and shaping us into vessels of his grace and truth.